Welcome everyone. Welcome. We're recording now. So I've got everyone on mute, got my video spotlighted so you won't be on YouTube. And if you want to ask any questions throughout, you can just unmute yourself and we'll keep it pretty informal. I'd like to just start by acknowledging that I'm broadcasting from the traditional lands of the Dja Dja Wurrung people, and to pay my respects to elders past and present and emerging, and any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people on the call today or watching on catch up. I want to start with a reading today, which is again from the Tao Te Ching. And so I'm going to do a little reading from that. And if you're just joining, all good, you'll be automatically muted. And if you want to unmute yourself to ask a question as we go through, you can. I'll do that reading and then we'll do some practice together, and we'll have some time at the end for some questions and some discussion. So I really like this reading. I just flicked to it this morning and thought it's really appropriate to our practice and to what we're going to look at today. So it goes like this. Thus the master travels all day without leaving home. However splendid the views, she stays serenely in herself. Why should the lord of the country flit about like a fool? If you let yourself be blown to and fro, you lose touch with your root. If you let restlessness move you, you lose touch with who you are. I'm just going to read that again because I think it's really, really powerful. Thus the master travels all day without leaving home. However splendid the views, she stays serenely in herself. So we're talking about the master traveling all day without leaving home. Sounds like a conundrum or a paradox. But my understanding, my experience of that is traveling externally. We're always moving through life. We're always doing something, going somewhere. Something's changing, but without leaving home. So we're staying rooted in this awareness, this attention that we are. We're not getting lost and blown about by thoughts. However splendid the views, she stays serenely in herself. So how often do we get distracted or drawn into thinking because something is amazing or it's beautiful or it's wonderful? And not to say that we can't appreciate those things, but often then we get drawn into thinking about that instead of experiencing it. Thinking about, well, where did this come from and why is it like this, and how do I keep it, instead of just enjoying that thing and experiencing it completely. Now, this is my favorite bit. Why should the lord of the country flit about like a fool? So each of us is, at our core is this alertness, this awareness that it's the one thing in you and in all of us that's never changed. So, when we practice, we get in touch with awareness itself. And we notice that we are what watches everything happen. We're not the things that are happening. So when they talk about this, why should the lord of the country flit about like a fool? And in Zen, they say, you're the boss. You're the boss, even though we don't feel like it. Within our own experience, we're the boss. And not to say that means we control what happens, because bosses don't do that either. But, we're the master of the house. We're the lord of the country in there. And most of us have spent our lives, flitting about like a fool. We're chasing this thought. We're chasing that thought. Every little thing that comes to mind, drags us off somewhere and throws us away. And it says, if you let yourself be blown to and fro, you lose touch with your root. So if we come back to that, if we allow ourselves, it's not that the thoughts themselves are a problem, But if we allow ourselves to continue to be blown to and fro, then we lose touch with our essence. We lose touch with the essence of who we are, with our source. If you let restlessness move you, you lose touch with who you are. So I think that's a really nice way to start our session. Some very old wisdom from, I don't know if anyone even knows when that was written, but it's a Chinese text from maybe the 8th century or somewhere around there. And so we can use that as a bit of a base for our practice today. So if you find yourself a comfortable position, and I suggest, probably close your eyes if you're comfortable with that, or find somewhere you can look where you won't be distracted. And we can start by just coming back in touch with our true self via the breath. So noticing what it feels like to breathe in and what it feels like to breathe out. Feeling the breath come in through the mouth or nose. Feeling the breath go out again. And just coming into the body and starting to shift our attention from thinking to awareness, to just being. Maybe we've spent the morning being blown to and fro, restless, chasing thought here and there. But right now we can come back to just this very instant, this very breath. And as we breathe, and we sit and we just be, just notice what the thought stream is doing, what the storyteller's up to now. And whatever thoughts are coming and going, see if you can just let them come and go. Just feel the breath. Those thoughts don't need dealing with, they don't need attending to for the moment. If they're important, they'll be there when you get back, when this is finished. And if they're not important, then they won't. It doesn't matter. So just keep feeling the breath and just watching those thoughts come and as those thoughts go. And notice as you do that there's the thought, there's the breath, and that there's you there watching. That you're there observing the whole show. The master of the house. The lord of the country. And if you find yourself, as Lao Tzu said, flitting about like a fool, don't be distressed. Just notice that and come back to this breath and to this moment. So as we breathe and we watch, and start to get in touch with that attention, that awareness that's watching. You can start to sense yourself as that background, as the observer. And you know, sometimes we're like a dog at the park, and you see those dogs down at the oval, and their owner is there with one of those ball throwers that just launches the ball a mile, and just flinging it back and forth. And you see those dogs that would just chase the ball wherever it goes, and then they bring it back, and then the master throws it again. And so often we're sitting there, and that storyteller is really just throwing balls for us. He's just sending us this way and that, completely in control. And all we're doing now is we're just sitting, and the balls are still flying. Maybe they've stopped, or there's less. But those balls aren't a problem. The problem is that we keep chasing them. So right now, just taking a rest from that and just feeling the breath. Noticing the body. And just allowing breath and thought to be as it is. It's not a problem. You are there untouched by thought. What happens is that when awareness becomes identified with the thought, then the body starts to believe it to be true. The body acts as if it's true. And so if it's a fearful thought, the body responds with fear. And if it's a worrisome thought, the body responds with what we call worry, which is that's a physical sensation. And that's the suffering that we're experiencing that we want to be free of. But underneath even that, you're still there watching that unfold, untouched by it. So as we sit and we breathe and we watch, there's absolutely nothing that you need to change about yourself, nothing that you need to become. And in fact, trying to change something and become something could be a distraction from really coming home to what you are. So for now, always just for now, let's just breathe and just sit and feel your body in the chair. Feel the air against the skin. And just fully immerse yourself in this show that we call now. We call this. Whatever's here, busy mind, quiet mind, really there is no mind. There's just thought. We call it mind. But if you watch really closely, you'll just see thoughts coming and going in this vast inner space. There's no one doing it. They just come. Like the wind and the clouds, they just come and they go. So there might be lots of clouds in that inner sky. There might just be a few, or there might be none. Doesn't matter. The sky doesn't care. And as you watch the breath and the thoughts, you notice the body. Keep this awareness of, or keep noticing that you're not any of that. You're just the one who's watching it, the one who's noticing. And so let's look at that. Let's settle into that for a moment. So if you look back through your memories of your life so far, everything about you has changed. Physical, emotional, belief structures, life situation, it's all changed. Nothing's the same as it was the day you were born. Nothing's the same as it was when you were 2 or 10 or 20, probably even. Maybe even 30, 40, 50. Everything's changed around you. And yet, the one thing that's never changed is that you've always been you. You've always had this sense of me, of I, of self. And that sense of self has always been maybe attached to the body or the life situation or the belief structures. But in reality, it's the one thing that's never changed. Is that you have always been there watching. And if you turn attention back onto yourself, back to where the attention comes from, you'll sense that you have never changed, that you've never had any opinions, that you've never experienced this suffering. You've always been observing it. And yet, when you get lost in it and you believe that it's yours, it makes it seem real. And this is the home that's being referred to, that the master travels all day but never leaves home. Someone who can, we don't have to go to ancient China. It's someone who can walk through the supermarket and stay connected to this. Someone who can drive to work and stay connected to this. Someone who can be in the midst of a pandemic and stay connected to this. That's what's being referred to. So as we breathe and we sit and we just watch, we can know that what you are doesn't need to go anywhere or do anything. Doesn't need to achieve anything. You can sit here like this for the rest of your life, and what you are will be fine with it. So let's allow ourselves just for a few minutes to sink into that. To just drop into the beauty of and the peace of not needing to achieve something or get somewhere. Wow. No need to get somewhere. No need to achieve something. How much weight is that from your shoulders to know that none of that matters? The things that the voice says must happen. I need to do this. I need to get this happening. I need to finish this. That we can just leave all of that. And we can still do the things, but we can do them for fun. We can do them just because. We don't have to have a motivation. We can do them without the sense of stress and fear that I must do them or else something bad will happen. I must do them. Has to be so. And this is true meditation, is we're just relaxing into this spacious moment and letting go of all of that fear, all of that letting go might not be the best way to say it, because it sounds like we're actively doing something to the fear or to the worry. What we're doing really is we're shifting our attention, and that's it. We're shifting our attention back to the breath and then becoming aware of ourselves as the watcher of it. And from that position, all we can do is just let fear be there, or let thoughts be there, or let whatever be there. Because as soon as we're trying to control or change or get rid of something, that's not, we're not there as the awareness anymore. We're believing a thought, we're getting caught up in an identity again. So when I say letting go, what I mean is really moving attention. We're withdrawing attention from this account that we call thinking, and we're investing it in this account we call being, or awareness, or attention. And that's it. So there's no goal in that. There's no outcome in that, because there's no future in it. And there's no past in it. We're just here now. So I think that's a worthy reminder for us all, is that if the practice has a goal, a future goal, then we've lost our way a little bit. Or if in the practice we're beating ourselves up because we didn't do it yesterday, then we've lost our way a little bit. And that, you know, what we're doing here in essence is just moving attention. We're not trying to change what we're paying attention to, not trying to improve it, not trying to become something, just being here, just breathing and just watching. So I'm going to leave the practice there. So feel free to open your eyes, to have a stretch, and just know that because we're not calling it practice anymore, it doesn't mean that awareness disappears. Doesn't mean that this process stops. It just means there's a little bit more going on in the background. And so we might find it harder to notice. We might find it easier to get lost. But everything that we've just uncovered is still there. It's not going anywhere. So I might just read, I'm just going to read through that just one last time because I love it. And then I'll just see if anyone's got any questions. So there's a line before that I didn't read, so I'll read the whole thing. The heavy is the root of the light. The unmoved is the source of all movement. Thus the master travels all day without leaving home. However splendid the views, she stays serenely in herself. Why should the lord of the country flit about like a fool? If you let yourself be blown to and fro, you lose touch with your root. If you let restlessness move you, you lose touch with who you are. Lovely. So are there anyone want to share any questions or comments, or what you noticed during that, or any wonderings about what we did or what I talked about today that you'd like to ask about?
I really enjoyed that, Ollie. That was, yeah, it was very meaningful. And I like the analogy between you thinking and throwing balls about, chasing balls.
The dog.
I can see that so vividly. I haven't actually heard that one before, so that was good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That just popped into my head. So
it was great for me.
And you see those dogs at the park, and you probably had one of those dogs before, some of you, where you throw the ball, and they just stand there and look at you like, well, no. What do you think I'm going to do? I'm not going to get that. Get it yourself.
Yeah.
And that's how we want to practice, really.
Yeah, all good.
Oh, thanks, Lovelace.
You're welcome.
Any other?
Something stood out for me, Ollie. One, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, one line really stood out for me was in the meditation you said, you could be here forever and your, can't remember the exact words, but your true self wouldn't care.
Mm.
And it was for the first time I just went, oh, yeah, we just attach to expectations of what we're meant to be doing. So, like, whilst I've learnt that, don't worry about what other people think or what you're meant to or not meant to do. But for the first time, I just went, whoa, I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to do anything and just be me.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good, it's so counterintuitive, isn't it? Or so countercultural that everything's about what you achieve before you die, sort of thing. You know, if we're really just brutal about it.
Yeah.
But like when you're dead, are you going to care?
No.
Whether you, and even like, do you remember, you know, we have these days and we go, oh, I didn't get enough done and I should have done this and I was going to do that. And then you think, well, what about, you know, January 10th last year? Was that a good day or a bad day? And were you productive or were you unproductive? And what
Who
about,
knows?
you know, what about in the summer of 1995? Was, you know, did you achieve your goals then, or was it, you know, did you fail miserably? That's like, in the, you know, it seems so. And what about your great grandparents? You know, did they live a meaningful life, or did they, you know? You're happy with
And
how?
sometimes it just takes one line. Like that line just stood out. It's like, oh, I just got it in a different way for some reason.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing. Would anyone else like to share before we finish up for today? Or before I stop the recording, at least, then you can share anonymously. All right. Well, I'll stop the recording in a moment. So just thank everyone for joining. Thanks everyone for watching on Catch Up. If you want to keep in touch, you can email me, ollie@peacethroughmindfulness.com.au. You can join my Facebook group, Mindfulness with Ollie Doyle. And if you're listening on the podcast as well, you can subscribe to that. You can tell your friends, and same if you're watching on YouTube. Thank you all very much. Oh, hang on, just pressing the wrong buttons. And I'll see you next week. Recorded